Let me thank everybody out there for their support and involvement in the progressive movement. And because of your support, the U.S. Senate, just the other day, after a very, very long night, I didn't go to sleep for about 30 hours, passed the most comprehensive pro-worker piece of legislation in the modern history of our country. You helped make that happen, and I thank you. And I want to just talk for a moment about some of what is in that bill. This is just some. Number one, all of us know that we have to crush this pandemic, which has killed over 500,000 Americans and made many, many millions of people sick. We're putting substantial sums of money to make sure that we're going to be producing all of the vaccines that we need and that we're going to get those vaccines into people's arms. In the last month, the Biden administration has done a good job in significantly improving the distribution of vaccines around the country, but much more has to be done, and this legislation provides the funds to do that, in addition to providing funds to hospitals to help deal with the COVID crisis. Above and beyond the pandemic, what this legislation does is understand that tens of millions of families in this country today are struggling economically. Some of them don't have enough food to feed their kids. They're worried about being evicted from their homes or their apartments. They may not have enough money to go to a doctor. What this legislation does is, on top of the $600 per person that we passed last month, it will provide $1,400 for every working class adult and child in this country. Single people, 75,000 or under, are eligible. A couple, $150,000 or under are eligible. That means a family of four, husband, wife, two kids, a check for $5,600. And that could mean the difference between despair and dignity. So that's a big deal, and I'm proud that we were able to get that in. This bill, in the midst of very high unemployment rates, will extend unemployment until the end of September. Now, I wanted $400 supplement on top of normal unemployment. That went down to $300. But what we did get in return, if you like, is a $10,000 exemption, tax exemption, for people who received unemployment last year. So unemployment is taxable. I don't think that's a great idea, but we got an exemption for the first $10,000. This legislation will make sure that there is a significant amount of money to help people pay their rent after the rent moratorium ends and prevent people who have mortgages from being thrown out of their homes as well. In the richest country in the history of the world, people should not be going hungry. This legislation puts billions of dollars to make sure that nobody in America goes hungry. This legislation also does something that is really long overdue. As many of you know, we have one of the highest rates of childhood poverty of any major country on earth, especially high in African American and Latino communities. This legislation expands the child tax credit so that we are going to be able to cut childhood poverty by as much as 50%. That is enormously important. This legislation, and something that I worked on very hard, will also double funding for community health centers all across this country. In my own state of Vermont, about 25% of our people get their health care, their dental care, their low-cost prescription drugs, mental health counseling through what are called federally qualified community health centers. We more than double funding so the community health centers can expand, improve their services to low and moderate income people all across America. And this bill does something else that we worked on, and that is at a time when so many kids have seen their education disrupted, we have more than tripled funding for summer programs and for after-school programs. That means this summer, kids will be able to get the opportunity not only to engage in recreation, have a good time, but to get the mentoring and academic work they need to kind of make up for what they lost during the academic year. And that is just some. We dealt with pensions in a very big way. Millions of workers were on track to see their pensions that they had been promised cut by up to 50%. We dealt with that issue, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So is this legislation perfect? No. And one area, obviously, which is where it's really deficient, something I've worked on, is raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. Now, this is an issue I've worked on for years, and we only got 42 votes the other day. But this, I promise you, we're going to win this fight. The American people understand that 7.25 federal minimum wage is a starvation wage. They understand that it's crazy that the Congress has not raised the minimum wage since 2007. State after state after state that has been able to vote on raising the minimum wage has done so, almost always voted to raise the minimum wage. We're going to do it. And we're just working on a strategy now to make that happen. So once again, let me end by the same way I began. None of this would have happened without your support. And we did this, by the way, with a 50-50 U.S. Senate. So we accomplished this because of the support of the American people. And what is very, very radical about this is not just all of the provisions in it, is that for once, the United States Congress was listening to the pain, the anxiety of ordinary Americans, and not listening to the lobbyists representing large corporations and the billionaire class. So thank you again for your support. Let's go forward together.